From 1965 to 1977, Srila Prabhupada traveled the world preaching, working tirelessly translating his books, while at the same time keeping in constant communication with his disciples through personal letters. It is through these letters that we are able to derive life lessons, material and spiritual, as well as appreciate Srila Prabhupada's loving care for his disciples. Let us now hear from one of those fortunate devotees who personally received correspondence from His Divine Grace.
Srila Prabhupada's letters are like a lens through which we can see the history of the Hare Krishna movement. They show Srila Prabhupada's interaction with his many disciples, as well as the way he created his mission, which is now spread all over the world. And this also gives a personal touch so that devotees understand how he dealt with his disciples, which is something that's really needed today. And that way, devotees, especially third generation, who never met Srila Prabhupada, have the opportunity to understand a more personal way of dealing, not only with Srila Prabhupada, but with one another. And that is also possible through the many memoir books that have been written by many disciples who were with Srila Prabhupada a great deal of time, like Shamsundar, Yamuna, and Makunda. And my first book was already printed. That's called A Place of Sandalwood and Roses. And my second book, memoir book, is at the press. It's called Those Magical Days of Sandalwood and Roses. So these, along with the letters, help the generations of devotees coming understand what the relationship was like. And you have to remember, at that time, nobody had cell phones. We barely had landlines. In fact, most temples didn't even have telephones at that time. So what I'm going to speak about today is what many people want to know about, which is the Tulsi. How did that come about? So I received a letter. I wrote Srila Prabhupada after trying for a couple of years to get Tulsi seeds to grow. And I had found a book in the library called Firminger's Gardening in India, which enabled me to understand it had the botanical and the species name for Tulsi. So this gave me the ability to find out what plant it was. Then I got some seeds from India via a Indian import lady. And the first ones didn't grow. The first ones we bowed down to blades of grass for a while. That didn't work. The second batch a year later did work. And then I wrote Srila Prabhupada. And he sent me a letter on April 7th. And in that letter, he's very happy. He says, I'm so very glad to learn that Srimati Tulsi Devi has favored you so much. If you can actually grow this Tulsi plant, and I'm sure you will do it, then you must know it for certain that your devotion for Krishna is testified. I am very much anxious to introduce this worship of Tulsi plant amongst our society members, but it has not become successful till now. Therefore, when I hear that you have got this opportunity, my pleasure does not have any bounds. And then he goes on to introduce 3 mantras. I am giving you herewith 3 mantras for Tulsi Devi as follows. Vrindaya Tulsi Devi Ai Priyaya Keshava Shacha Vishnu Bhakti Prati Devi Satyavataya Namo Namah. He said, this is for offering obeisances, bowing down, and when collecting the leaves from the plant, the following mantra should be chanted. Tulasya Mentya Janmasi Saratvam Keshava Priya Keshavati Chinomi Tvam Bharata Bhava Shobhine. This then is the mantra for circumambulating the Tulsi tree. Jani Kani Chapapani Brahmahatya Dikani Cha Tani Tani Pranatyanti Pradakshina Padepade. So we all know these mantras. We've been using them for many years. And Srila Prabhupada adds that each bowl or plate of foodstuff to be offered should be at least 1 Tulsi leaf on it. So you follow this and practice these Tulsi affairs, and you try to distribute your experience to all the other centers. That will be a new chapter in the history of Krishna consciousness movement. So subsequently, I wrote him a letter back because I have many copies of letters that I sent to him and then he sent back to me, which is part of the plan for book 3, where there will be my letters and his letters so that you can see how he responds to his disciples. So then the next letter is on the 13th of June. And he said, I have received the Tulsi seeds and the instructions. I sent him one of the little Tulsi kits I put together. I have received the Tulsi seeds and the instructions and immediately handed it over to Karanda, and he's taking care nicely, but the seeds are not yet sprouted. Today is the 6th day, so the factual result will be informed to you in due course. So that's what happened. Then he tells us that, well, we're inviting him to come to Hawaii. And he says, better you should come to San Francisco. And of course, we did go to San Francisco that year. And that's when I brought him 2 Tulsi plants. And he was the happiest I'd ever seen him. So then I was sending out kits according to what his instruction was. And time went on. So 2 years later, 1972, we had by that time 7-foot Tulsi plants that were so big that when Prabhupada came to Hawaii, you had to duck down to enter the temple because they were huge. They were over 7 feet tall. And so he told us we can't cut them back. So my husband had them tied back as best we could do that, but they were huge. And we had some very villainous neighbors who hated our kirtans for some reason. And one day, the men, Siddha Swarup had joined by then, and he had donated ashrams, land, properties. And so all of the brahmacharis went to, we had a farm at the North Shore that Siddha Swarup had donated. And the neighbors saw the big truck pull out with, the 40 brahmacharis or whatever. So he knew that we were, just the girls were there. So in the middle of the night, he came over in the middle of the night. I think it was a full moon too. And he chopped down all of our 7-foot Tulsi plants. Now, you have to understand, these plants looked like trees. They had trunks this big, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches big. So he must have used a chainsaw. Anyway, we came out in the morning, and lying on the ground in front of our temple were all the big Tulsi plants. It was horrifying. And what we immediately did was we put pavilions over all of them and began to water them, hoping that some of them would survive because they had still roots there. But I did not choose to write Srila Prabhupada about this. I knew it was a traumatic thing, and I didn't want to disturb him. I only wrote him. My system was always that I would write him and he would write me, and then it would be a long silence. And I would write him and then he would write me. I knew, because I was a secretary for a year, I knew how burdensome it was for him to receive thousands of letters. So I kept it to a minimum. So I didn't write him. I didn't write him at all about this. But mysteriously, on January 6th of 1972, now this is nearly 2 years later, I got a letter from Srila Prabhupada from India. It's actually from Bombay, Akash Ganga, Bombay. My dear Govinda Dasi, please accept my blessings and offer the same to your good husband, Gursinder. How are your Tulsi plants in Hawaii? How are they feeling? I am always thinking of them and you. Please let me know how they are growing and how you are taking care of them. This time when I go to Hawaii, I shall sit down in the forest of Tulsi plants and chant Hare Krishna. So even though Srila Prabhupada was on the other side of the planet, he obviously knew what had happened. because he's in touch with his disciples in the heart. He explained that many times, that he's actually able to be in touch with his disciples, and he knows whatever Krishna wants him to know. So because of this letter, I had to write him and tell him what happened, that the neighbors had villainously chopped down all of our Tulsi trees and so forth. So then he sent me a letter back in February of 1972. That's about a month later, because that's how long it took for snail mail in those days, especially to India. And in this letter, he says, please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge your letters, and it's with great pleasure that I remember your good husband by reading and seeing the nice work you're doing there in New Navadvip News. That was a little pamphlet we had. I am very sorry to hear about your demoniac neighbor cutting down many Tulsi plants, but do not worry. He shall get his due punishment in time. Rest assured. Simply go on in the normal way, and gradually his threat will disappear. Such men should be taken and beaten very hard with shoes, but it will not be very much to our credit if we are accused of fighting in this way. But if that man is caught trespassing on our property, then he may be severely punished by us. You can also put up a barbed wire fence around the Tulsi plants if that will help, or some way, how or other protect them from further danger. Our experience has been that if we ignore them, such demoniac class of men, they will go away. Well, it's true, they did eventually move away. And so I guess what my point in explaining all this is that Srila Prabhupada actually, he at another time explained to me how the spiritual master is in touch with each disciple within his heart. It's like it's not snail mail, it's heart mail. Simply by praising him, by worshiping, by this is the mystical aspect of Krishna consciousness, that he explained to me, that just as the spiritual master is in constant touch with Krishna, and Krishna is in the heart of every being, so Krishna lets him be in touch with that disciple. Of course, it's not exactly omniscience or omnipresence, because he's only aware of what Krishna wants him to be aware of, whatever he wants him to know. And it's very personal as well. And there's a reason why we have Srila Prabhupada's pictures and murtis in all our temples. It's so that we can connect with him. Even if we never met him, we can connect with him, because he was the deity. He walked amongst us, and he's still very much in touch with his disciples. And I think most of you who are his disciples, I don't have to even tell you this, you're well aware of it. And he will be the founder Acharya for the next 10,000 years of this ISKCON Hare Krishna Sampradaya. And he said founder Acharya, and actually founder Acharya means the leader of a Sampradaya. The ISKCON Sampradaya is quite different. It's not the same as Gaudiya Math. Gaudiya Math never introduced Krishna Balaram worship or many other things. So we have to understand that heart mail is the only kind of mail that we have now available. When he was on this planet, we could send him letters and we could get replies. But now we can send him letters from our heart, and we can also get replies. At least that is my experience as a Hare Krishna devotee. One of the things that was really impressive, and this is in several letters, he writes, please accept my blessings. And this is September 18th, 1972. I have received again today your shipment of mangoes from Hawaii. I used to send him mangoes, and in order to send the mangoes from Hawaii to California or wherever he was, I had to put them in a box in a photographic, back in those days, they had these envelopes that were to protect film. I'm sure you know about that, right? And so I would have to put them in the envelope, and then I would have to write on the outside of the package, "Do not open photographic materials," in order to make sure the mangoes got there. And he actually approved of my doing this. I found there was one letter like that when I was searching. So I have received again today your shipment of mangoes from Hawaii. And I have also received the other mangoes in the last few days. And I thank you very much for thinking about me. And I'm always thinking about you along with your good husband, Gorsinder, because you have been of such good assistance to me for pushing on this Krishna consciousness movement in your country and other places around the world. Without your kind assistance and thinking of me, I am one old man. What could I do alone? But fortunately, Krishna has sent you to assist me, and I can appreciate it very much. May Krishna give you his all blessings and more. Now I am preparing to go to India for some time in the middle of October month, and I want to stop in Honolulu for one night to rest. And Siddha Swarup can meet me there for coming with me to India and remaining with me for some time. I shall be very glad to see all of you, my good disciples, at that time. Calling himself an old man doesn't set well with me, but that's how humble he was. So humble. He was controlling the whole movement, but was completely humble. No arrogance whatsoever. Not a shred of egoism or arrogance. You won't find that nowadays. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Prabhupada. Thank you for sharing. Hare Krishna.